I do really like the energy here. It has a kind of, I don't want to say like funkiness, but there is kind of a certain spirit or attitude around kind of things being very improvised in a way, and I like that. I think that's something that I really relate to as well.
So my stay here in Zagreb is like very cool people, a lot of good food and all of these things. But I think for my art, it's very much this, I feel extremely human and vulnerable. As an Arctic person, like I'm from the northern Norway above the Arctic Circle, I am melting and I feel nature very pressing. I feel that I am very small. This sun is just melting me away. And that's something I really like. I think it's very good for humans to feel nature, to feel that we are small. I have to find shadow to survive. So that's actually quite fitting with how I work and how I am inspired to feel human, and I definitely do.
Yeah, I think like earlier on, I was really focused on just sound, and then the kind of kinetic aspects or the movement aspects became just like a way to realize like, a sounding world that I wanted to create. But now I feel like it's kind of like a balance between the two, and I am interested in this idea of how we hear things differently based off of seeing something move or seeing something move as a collection of elements, let's say. And I pretty much do all my fabrication and design on my own, so I've had to learn a lot of different ways to realize, physical object design or computer-aided design, and then learning a lot about just basic building and programming and all these sorts of things. So I'm no longer, I feel, just focused on going down this trajectory about just making sound. I think the work really the visual element plays a huge role. Well, for me, it really depends on the piece I'm working with or the type of work that I'm creating. So, but I do find myself often being inspired just by kind of everyday events or everyday objects, movements, or sounds. Being curious about what something would sound like presented in a certain context, and then I often let these kind of ideas kind of marinate for a while, and then they usually take different shape, but there's this process where I'm kind of fixated on some idea and just kind of ideating around it, and then it almost takes like a year. I find this kind of like from kind of an idea to prototyping to whatever for it to kind of come to be realized.
My process of creation is quite different. It depends a bit. I'm kind of always collecting ideas, color schemes, structures, textures, thematic stories. And then, of course, also I can be very colored by a specific occasion, specific location. So I find this Museum of Broken Relationships such a cool thing. It's like it's so human, so tender, so real, so filterless. So in my work, I'm very, very inspired by this museum, and that of course connects me and my work to Zagreb, which is really cool. That I found my angle. The right idea at the right time at the right place. It's like all a mixture of things. But I do really like to somehow connect it to my storyline. So it's colored by me and my view, and telling in some ways my story.
The piece I want to create will be in line with my previous work in general, but I am, being inspired by the sites, like the site visits and the spaces, trying to figure out a way to incorporate, all these kind of site-specific elements into the work as well. But yeah, in general, I think it's really just kind of a day-to-day thing. It's not like a really formalized process of going about it. I guess the way I've been thinking about it is not necessarily about, a broken relationship as in like a romantic relationship, but just a relationship that's formed between a group of people or a group of objects or anything. And I think inherently with the idea of something interacting with another, with group interaction in general, it's always kind of an emotional process. So I do like the idea that, we're going to, whether we realize it or not, kind of graft onto our ideas about emotion onto art itself. So there's like, if anything moves or anything makes sound in some way, it's always going to be an emotional process. Actually, maybe just like the idea of something being a failure, but like, can that be beautiful?
I think the future for humanity depends a lot on humanity, like our choices, how we choose to deal with things. I do think there's some kind of fascinating thing into this, like the potential coming doom of humankind. And I like to explore it in my art in a more neutral way. See like what could come out of humans not being here, possible new life forms, how would the world look after, but also this whole, during this collapse of humankind's time in this world is also something I like to explore a lot in my art. And maybe with my art I can put these questions out there and I can maybe help our decision for our future. So it's not necessarily doomed, but if it is, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.